My name is Laura Jurd. I'm a trumpet player and composer, and I improvise a lot. I do a lot of improvised music, and I also teach composition here at Trinity Laban, amongst other things. In terms of my relationship with Trinity Laban, I was a student here. I started studying here in 2009. I did a bachelor's degree. I studied jazz trumpet when I was here, and I also had some composition lessons with various people like Erilyn Wallen and Mark Lockhart. And since graduating a few years later, I found myself applying for a job to teach composition here. And here I am. So I've enjoyed a couple of years now teaching here, which is really fantastic. And I mostly teach one-to-one composition as part of the composition department, but I also teach various modules, one called Intro to Jazz, which is a composition department module where they have to write for jazz instruments, and also I've been teaching various academic modules, for instance an elective for fourth years called Orchestration, and also something called Artist as Citizen, which is like a first year workshop leading module. So it's a very varied bunch of things, which is great. What inspired me to become a composer? I think I started playing music from a very early age, quite naturally, just sort of playing piano at home, playing around with it as a toddler, and I always sort of wrote little things and came up with little ideas, and it wasn't until later on that I realised that that's not necessarily something that everybody does. So being a composer was just something that I always did, but just that label of being a composer didn't come until later, until you find out that that's actually something that you can do. So I've been sort of writing little things from a young age and started to do it more formally as I got into my sort of teenage years, and particularly my late teens. In my sixth form, I met a fantastic composition teacher and composer who was head of my sixth form actually, called Martin Reed, and he sadly isn't around anymore, but he showed me like so many different types of music that have been a great influence on what I've been doing today. And he actually had an unusually broad kind of level of knowledge and enthusiasm for so many different types of music, whether it was classical music, jazz, rock, pop, whatever it was. I learnt so much in those years. It was one of those really sort of concentrated periods of like eating up everything and anything, and being really curious, and having someone around me that could kind of feed that curiosity was really vital. So it was an unavoidable thing being a composer for me. My most memorable piece of work, there's probably a few. I straddle quite a lot of different zones when it comes to being a musician. I have a band called Dinosaur, which is a jazz band really, which is where I play trumpet, and there's piano, bass and drums. And with that band we've done kind of loads of different festivals and gigs all over the place, mainly in Europe and the UK, but we've also done a couple of things outside of Europe, which is very exciting. So that's the kind of thing which is, that's been going the longest. That started here at Trinity actually. We all went to Trinity Laban, and 10 years ago actually this year, so that's quite exciting. It's our sort of 10th birthday. And so I guess too many exciting things with that band to single out one, but one recent sort of compositional highlight for me was a concert I did last year in a few different venues in the UK, including King's Place, Sage Gateshead, St George's, Bristol, and some others, of a project called Stepping Back, Jumping In, which was recorded as well, and an album of that music came out in July last year. But that included compositions by myself and some other people in the ensemble for a 14-piece mixed ensemble of some quite interesting instruments. And the lovely thing about that ensemble was that everybody was equally at home reading music at a very high level, and also improvising. And it featured instruments. We had the Ligeti Quartet, who are a fantastic contemporary string quartet, and there was also banjo, santur, which is an Iranian hammered dulcimer-like instrument, piano, brass. So there's a really eclectic mix of sounds to be inspired by. So that was a highlight last year for me, for sure. So recently I've recorded the third album with Dinosaur, my band, that's on Edition Records. It's going to be coming out in May this year, May 2020, which is exciting. And yeah, our previous album was quite a lot more electronic, used quite a lot of analog synths, and there was electric bass, and it was quite a produced thing. We used the studio a lot in making the album. This one kind of, yeah, goes back to our kind of more traditional jazz roots, but still, hopefully with my own, you know, compositional identity in there. I'm quite inspired by quite a lot of folk music, so that's the sort of thread that's in a fair amount of my writing for that band, certainly, and perhaps in a lot of the music I write. But yeah, it's really exciting to have created some music which just provides a real space for us to be jazz musicians, you know. So yeah, Connor, who plays bass, who also went to Trinity Laban, everyone went there. I won't keep saying that because we'll be here all day. But Connor Chaplin is playing double bass, Corey Dick plays the drums, and Elliot Galvin plays piano. And yeah, it's just really fun to go back to something that feels similar to the kind of music we played when we first started, but hopefully we're all a bit better and the music is stronger, you know. So it's really exciting. To have grown with those musicians has been actually one of the biggest influences for me. You know, obviously there's all these composers throughout history and band leaders and people, you know, who have got like a big global profile that I really love and admire. But you know, equally to those people, my, you know, contemporaries and colleagues and peers that I play music with now are just as big an influence on my music making, for sure. Yeah, one of the things that I really enjoy about working here as a composition teacher, I guess, you know, composition is such a broad topic, and my one-to-one students are all writing very different music, so it's really, yeah, a real treat for me to get an insight into, you know, all these different students' influences, and to see how I can, you know, bring, you know, my skills to kind of their world, and to really kind of help them to, yeah, explore what it is they want to do in greater depth, and to kind of find the things that they you know, could do with working on, and to think about how that can be achieved. So it's a great, you know, challenge from that point of view, and it just means you're always thinking about composing, which is great in a really deep way, which is really helpful to me as a composer, you know, as well. I'm learning a lot as I'm doing it, so that's fantastic. And I think the composition department, dare I say, it's definitely the most open-minded department in the kind of music faculty. It's definitely the most daring and courageous, and the most relevant to now, I dare to say. It's very much about, you know, what it's like out there at the moment in the 21st century for a young composer, you know, and I think it kind of sets up and paints a good picture of what that might be across the 4 years of studying. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be involved. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, okay, thinking about upcoming projects this year. Okay, one of note that I can think of is in March I'm going to be at Oxford Contemporary Music with the Ligeti Quartet. Myself and Suzanne Lolliver, who is a composition teacher, good friend of mine here at Trinity Laban as well. So the Ligeti Quartet are a string quartet, and they're going to be playing string quartets that we've written, and we're also going to be playing various pieces of music with them. I'm going to be attempting to play a piece by Anna Meredith, which was written for trumpet and string quartet, which is a great challenge for me because yeah, it sort of pushes me out of my comfort zone. Well, hopefully by then I'll be in my comfort zone, but for now I've got some practice to do on that piece. And also I'll be playing a short improvised solo trumpet set. Suzanne and I will be collaborating. She plays the santur, and we're going to be doing a trumpet and santur duet of sorts. So it's really fun for me to be collaborating with Suzanne again. She was part of the project I did last year that I mentioned at King's Place and various other places in the UK. So yeah, great to be collaborating with a fellow composer, and yeah, with this concert. It's great. And I've got also various things with my band Dinosaur. Excitingly, in May this year we're launching our third album at the Queen Elizabeth Hall, so that'll be really exciting. I think this is the biggest place we've played in the UK, so I'm excited. It'll be great.